Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of ChimpChat. I am joined today by Michael Ross, who is a relationship manager and senior product advisor with Heartland. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Jeff.
All right. So obviously, let's talk about COVID-19 because clearly that's what's on everybody's mind. Talk to me about what you're seeing from your side of things in the payroll and HR space as it applies to COVID-19 and coronavirus.
Well, I think the biggest thing for us is that obviously we're seeing a lot of people that are in panic over, what they need in order to even apply for the loans. So we're getting a lot of people calling in talking specifically about, what is it that we can provide them to help them through that process. So for people that are watching, I would just tell you that make sure that you have all of your payroll reports. Reach out to your payroll company. They should have a set of reports. We have a set of reports. We're calling it the COVID reports. They'll have whatever name they want to have on it. But just, for the basics of it, I would tell you, make sure that you have your payroll journal summary. That should be a date range report that runs from January 1 to December 31st of 2019. You might also want to run that same report from March to March. Based on if you're trying to get the money in the second round, they might have they're looking at changing the parameters of the date range. So get them both. Get date range from all of 2019 and then run a 12-month rolling average from March to March. Also make sure you have a check history summary report. That means that you're going to see each individual employee by actual check what they're getting paid because they're going to look at that on the forgiveness side. You want to make sure you get your tax liability summary report. Again, all these are going to be the same date ranges I talked about. And if you have healthcare, you're going to want to make sure that you have all your healthcare numbers. We actually call it a ACA FTE report, which basically is a date range report telling you who's on your plan and how much money is being spent, because those are monies that you get to count towards the loan forgiveness and to get the amount of the loan up. Also, if you're providing employer match in the 401k space, you get to count that as well. And all these reports should be easily accessible by your payroll company. And then obviously you're going to want to get either from the payroll company or your tax accountant, depending on who does it, all your IRS 941s for every quarter of 2019, 2020, the first quarter, and then your 940 or 944, depending on how you're filing for the 2019 annual.
So obviously that's specifically regarding the PPP loan and the other COVID-based sort of loans and hopefully grants for the rest of, for the small and medium-sized businesses that are out there. Talk to me about what you're seeing in just your conversations with your clients. What are what is the general consensus? What is the thought process? What's the temperature of your client base? Because obviously you're so based on relationships, you have these conversations with them. Where are they at with this stuff?
So I hate to say they're all over the board, but I just have such a diverse group of clients. So I'll put them in three buckets. I have a bucket of clients that, they were heavily impacted. They were forced to close. They're not essential. And they couldn't do anything different to stay open. So, they're calling me from a state of fear. How do I save my business? How do I make sure my employees are going to come back to me? I had to send them to the unemployment lines. And I just guide those set of employers and I say, hey, listen, here's what you need to do in order to, just guide them over there. Don't just let them go out your door. Give them some paperwork, give them some information. Here's where you need to go to apply for unemployment. If you can afford to keep someone on even 10 hours a week instead of 40, they can still apply for the other 30 on the unemployment side. So that can help you tie to them. And then the other thing I tell them is, and it's crazy for them to hear this, but you need to see what are you providing your employee that makes you sticky, that makes them want to come back. So what things, if you're not doing now, can you do? You probably can't afford to provide healthcare, but if you could provide any kind of extra, what would that look like? And then I talk to them. I let them tell me where their head is, and we kind of talk through it, whether it's an ancillary benefit or something to make them feel better. Or sometimes it's just, hey, you're going to promise that the kitchen fridge is going to be loaded for the next 3 months. They don't have to worry about food. I mean, it can be simple stuff, just trying to keep them happy. And then I have others that are trying to figure out how to hire. I have people call me saying, I pivoted. I had to shut my business down, but now all I'm selling is PPE products. and I can't keep the demand. I need more bodies. So, we're guiding them towards where to go as far as looking for applicants in our system if they're using our applicant tracking, how to post jobs to try to get those people to come to them. And obviously, I've been pushing them to social media, saying, hey, get out there and tell everyone you're hiring, because everyone's on social media looking right now for something. So if you can't get it through the direct channels, and I just tell them to avoid Craigslist for all intents and purposes. That never usually works out to the benefit from an employment standpoint. That's usually not.
I've had one good hire from Craigslist. One good hire.
Fair enough. I would say this.
One good hire from Craigslist.
Fair enough. I would say this. I would say that you found the diamond in the rough. And in today's market, there are so many good quality, high quality folks that just lost their jobs by nobody's fault. But they're out there and they're looking, and the cream of the crop, I tell all my employers, are out there right now. So if you can find a way to go look for the best of the best, they're sitting on the sidelines, get them now. Get them before they go back to work. Because remember something, the best of the best aren't always happy at the job they're in, but they're content because you pay them, the other company was paying them well and doing all these things. But now they're at home, they have a little unfortunate discern against the other company. And so you have an opportunity to possibly win a better opportunity, a better employee for you to upgrade your own business through employment.
Very, very Jim Collins of you, getting the right people in the right seats of the bus. So you mentioned that you obviously have, kind of the people that are kind of all three kind of percentages. You have the people that are unfortunately really struggling and aren't sure how they're going to keep the doors open long term. You have the people that are in the middle, and you have the people that are looking to hire, right? That you have all sort of three, the people that are struggling in growth mode and kind of, if you had to ballpark it, where would you put those percentages of all of them?
I think about 20% of the market is, and that's a rough number, but about 20% of the market is in that able to pivot space and are actually making more money today than they were yesterday. Again, it's all tied to they're in the healthcare space or they're in a product space where they can sell a product and they can turn fast and make those changes. So those I have a client that I can't talk about who they are, but they provide and make the COVID test, right? So obviously they were in that market that they're going to do well. But on the other hand, I would say you have about 30 or 40% of the businesses that are completely closed right now. And then the ones in the middle, they're actually hit the hardest. Believe it or not, the ones that closed, they're going to get relief from either the EIDL or the PPP to bring everyone back. They're forced into closure. It wasn't like they had to close. But then there's the others that are in the middle that are trying to succeed. They're keeping everybody on full time, but the revenue is not there. A lot of it's like restaurants. They're just open for to-go only. And at that point, like if you had an 80-person restaurant, they're staffing 20 people, but trying to pay 80, and everyone's got 5 hours, and they just don't want to lose anybody because they're all quality people, and they're struggling the most.
It's a non-tenable situation. All right, so let's pivot a little bit, talk about hospitality. Obviously, I've known you for a while, and I know that you came from the hospitality space. So put on your GM hat of a restaurant from a former life of yours.
Okay.
What would you do? What do you say to another restaurant owner or another general manager of a restaurant under these circumstances?
So, I have a lot of restaurant businesses, obviously, because I had the familiarity of how restaurants run. So I do payroll for a lot of restaurants. And I do have daily conversations with them. And I mean that, like, they call me asking for advice on what to do. And some of the things that we talk about most are, how do when we open, what do I do? I can't bring them all back. Even when we open, we're going to only be able to capacity at 50%. And so we talk about, okay, so right now, while you're not open inside, who's in the restaurant rearranging your seating? Because maybe your capacity of your restaurant sits 100, but if you rearrange the seating, could you theoretically get, instead of 50, could you get 60 seats and still have the spacing you need? Can you move some walls around, the movable walls I talk about? Move that stuff around to be ready in the next 3 weeks. I also talk about what does it look like on the other side of this? How are you collecting payments today? You know, remember, everyone's bringing pens to tables and signing the receipt. That's kind of old fashioned, right? What kind of technology are you bringing to the table? Did you already have it? What systems are you using? Are you using cloud-based systems that have the ability for people to actually have an app downloaded on their phone so they could pay from their phone? It's their own device. They could pay, sign, signature, tip, everything from their own device. And this technology exists. A lot of the smaller fast food or quick service type restaurants have these kind of technologies in place already. They're running around with servers with tablets. They have that ability to just flip a switch and switch it to the phone of the consumer. They never thought they needed it, but now is a good time for them to make that switch and start practicing in that space. But for those that are still on the brick and mortar, old-fashioned, legacy type point of sale systems that don't allow for any kind of integration, now's a good time to start looking at what cloud-based system can I run my business off of, and how can I be more efficient in that space? Because those legacy pieces cost a lot of money. So they're using, Breadcrumb or Toast or Heartland Restaurant POS, it doesn't matter. Just find one out there that's going to allow you to move in the 21st century. And then also, and I tell these people, don't lose your paper backup plans, because today our issue was COVID,
right.
and it's cash that we can't touch. But how do we know in 5 years from now, when the next event happens, we don't lose internet? So make sure that your business can run on both sides of it.
Sure.
You might never use one of the sides, but be prepared. Don't be in a position like you are now.
Don't talk about losing internet. My business would really, really be hit pretty badly if that's the case.
Listen, I expected. Hold on. You better start hiring those guys with signs in the corner, spinning the signs.
I've got a whole stockpile of the inflatable guys. The I don't even know what they're the crazy guys that are commonly used at like car washes and car dealerships and stuff. Yeah, I'll
You'll be the new Blue Man Group.
Huh?
You'll be the new Blue Man Group. Green.
Exactly. So let's not talk about losing the internet. I'm not ready to deal with it. I'm dealing with COVID enough right now. So interesting stuff with regard to how you're helping the restaurants pivot. Let's kind of finish up on what you've seen. Give me one or two stories of clients that have pivoted, not because they were already in a space that could handle it, but rather a complete and total shift, or how they were creative. For example, how a lot of, obviously, restaurants have gone to curbside pickup. That was an easy sort of pivot, not super clever or creative. It was kind of an obvious sort of approach that they did. But rather how attorneys have started doing drive-by closings, like real estate attorneys have started to provide kind of halfway solutions on how to do that. What clients have you spoken to where they had something really clever, like that cool nugget that our listeners at home or at work might be like, oh, that's really cool. I might be able to do that.
So I'll tell you, not all restaurants were ready for that, to do that whole curbside thing. So for some of them, that might have been a really hard pivot. They're used to people walking up to the bar. They didn't have a real to-go service. So I kudos to those that actually could make that happen. Because for some, it was like automatic, hey, I already do this, and just shift some resources. For others, they had to cut walls, right? They had to blow holes out to create a modified drive-through. So the fact that they were able to move quick to do that, that's good for them. In the space of real estate, one of the clients is in fact they do notaries and they do estate planning. So they found a way to create space inside the building where you would either they would come out to you with clipboards and you would sign, and they would notarize from the street, and you would have their special face mask on and things like that. Or you would go into a room and it would be disinfected and cleaned, and it was like you would sit here, but the witnesses would be on the other side of the glass looking into the conference room to create that distance. But I still think my favorite is it was a embroidery type company. So they embroidered hats, they made T-shirts, and they did really well in that space. But they had 20 employees, and they were afraid they were going to, lose them, and all of the orders stopped coming in. But he called and he says, "What do you think I could do different?" I said, "Well, you do branding, you do marketing stuff. So what have you looked at to sell marketing?" He says, "Well, no one's running any events." I said, "True, but there? And he goes, well, someone asked me to find. And
I'm going to back you up. Michael, I'm going to back you up. We had a little internet lag there for a second. So I'm going to back you up. Said you do marketing, you do branding. What can you do? And why don't you restart that answer? I apologize. We had like kind of an internet hiccup from your side.
So he said, hey, I said, you do marketing and branding type stuff. You sell promotional items. Have you looked in that space? He says, well, there's no events for me to sell them. I said, yeah, but there are people that are looking for stuff. Maybe there's something out there. And he goes, someone did ask me if I can get masks. I said, well, can you? He goes, I don't know. And then 2 weeks later, he called me and he said, hey, thanks, man. I'm up 70%. I go, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I can't keep up with the orders. Now people are calling and they're actually companies, big companies are calling saying, hey, I'm getting ready for my employees to come back. And I need to be able to provide the safety. I have a tight order space. I'm going to provide gloves for everyone. I'm going to provide masks for everyone, but I don't want the cheap disposable kind of stuff. I want my stuff branded. So everyone's going to have a mask with my logo on it. Can you do that kind of stuff? And he said, yeah. So they're doing that. He's supplying hospitals regionally with all kinds of stuff that people are asking for. And, unfortunately the prices are going up, but it's not him that's gouging it. It's the freighters that are causing the change in price. But again, at the end of the day,
I think, sure.
That's a great story to see someone that was printing T-shirts a month ago.
Now he's printing masks.
Well,
no, it's the world we live in. It's what people are looking for. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. That's the situation. And so, I love the ingenuity that many businesses have had in these circumstances. I mean that's not a 180-degree pivot, but it's a pretty substantial pivot. He had the resources, he had the relationships, and he said, okay, I can make this happen. And he's up 70%. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that's a true success story. And then, of course, he's going to then have to repivot when, I believe that our country, Americans, have a short attention span. So I have a feeling that the need and the desire for masks are going to go down very dramatically once things kind of slow down. A couple months after that, but then after that, you're going to stop seeing it because it's annoying and they're not comfortable. And
you know what was really cool, I think, from that employer's perspective is that because he was up 70%, and even though he only needed 5 employees, not 20, they're sitting at home and he's paying them all because he's like, hey, I'm up. Why not keep my staff fully covered? So, they're working from home, answering phone calls, and trying to do some marketing types to get ready for when they come back to printing shirts and so and embroidering hats. But he's able to keep the employees, and that was a big deal to him.
No, it's wonderful. Michael, I thank you so much for joining me today. Why don't you give us a 30-second commercial for those still listening, still watching. Talk to me about what you do, what Heartland does, and how you can help businesses grow and succeed.
Okay, so again, I work for Heartland, and I'm in the payroll division. We do payroll and HR, and we focus on small, medium businesses from 1 to 250 employees. And I would say that the niche that is ignored the most is 11 to 75 employees. We buy just a different type of service where it's very hands-on. We don't have a self-service model where you have to do it yourself and kind of get lost in that space. So we hold your hand through the process, and we let you go run your business while we handle payroll.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Be safe, be well, everybody that's out there. Be safe, be kind, pass the hat, help your local businesses. I'm Jeff with Flying Chimp. I'll see you next time.